Before we begin today's story, take a moment to subscribe if you enjoy emotionally driven stories that stay with you long after the video ends. These are the kinds of stories that aren't loud or rushed, they quietly settle into your heart. And if you stay until the end, you might find yourself thinking about this one longer than you expect. People often talk about love as if it vanishes in an instant, like a door slammed shut or a fire suddenly extinguished. But that's not how it usually happens. Love doesn't always leave loudly. Sometimes it slips away slowly, like air escaping a room through cracks you never noticed. One day you look around and realize you're still standing in the same place, but the warmth is gone. My name is Emily Carter, and for a long time I believed this quiet emptiness was just part of growing older, part of settling into adulthood, part of being married. I was wrong. This isn't a story about betrayal or scandal. There are no shocking secrets or dramatic twists. This is the story of how I almost disappeared from my own life, and how an unexpected companion helped me find my way back. From the outside, my life looked complete. I lived in a neat suburban home with trimmed hedges and neutral-colored walls. My husband David was respected and admired, dependable, disciplined, and endlessly busy. Friends praised his work ethic. Family members admired how stable we were. And in many ways, we were. We paid our bills on time. We attended events together. We exchanged polite conversations over dinner. Our calendar was always full. Yet my heart felt strangely empty. Every morning followed the same pattern. David woke before the sun, already focused on emails and meetings. Coffee brewed. Shoes went on. A quick goodbye kiss, more habit than affection, and the door closed behind him. The house fell silent. Not peaceful silence. Not comforting silence. Just absence. I told myself this was normal. That long marriages weren't supposed to feel exciting. That stability mattered more than connection. That passion was for movies, not real life. But deep down something ached. I missed being asked how my day was, and having someone actually listen. I missed laughter that wasn't forced. I missed feeling chosen instead of simply included. Most of all, I missed feeling visible. The day Max entered our lives, everything began to shift, though I didn't know it yet. The idea of getting a dog came from David. He talked about safety, responsibility, and how a dog would be good for the house. I agreed, though my reasons were different. I wasn't looking for protection. I was looking for warmth. When we brought Max home, a clumsy boxer puppy with oversized paws and curious eyes, I had no idea how deeply he would change my days. At first he was just work. Early mornings. Training accidents. Choo-choos. Endless walks. I handled most of it while David remained politely supportive but distant. He would pat Max on the head, smile briefly, then return to his phone or laptop. But something unexpected happened. Max noticed me. Not the way people do when they glance up from a screen, but truly noticed me. He followed me from room to room, sat beside me while I read, watched my face as if it told a story he wanted to understand. When I spoke, he listened. When I was quiet, he stayed. Slowly, without realizing it, I began to feel less alone. One morning stands out more than the others. David had left in a rush, already deep into a phone call before he reached the driveway. I stood in the kitchen holding a mug that had gone cold. I hadn't spoken a single word out loud yet that day. Max sat near the door watching me, head slightly tilted, eyes soft and alert, as if asking a question he couldn't voice. I gave a small smile. "Looks like it's just us again," I said. His tail tapped the floor once. He didn't move away. He didn't demand anything. He simply stayed. And something inside me shifted. As the weeks passed, Max became part of my rhythm. We walked every morning after David left. Not rushed walks, not fitness walks, just slow movement through quiet streets and shaded paths. I began to notice things again. Sunlight through branches. Distant birds. The feeling of breathing without holding it in. With Max beside me, the world felt softer. I started humming while folding laundry, laughing when he chased falling leaves, talking out loud just because I could. At first, my words were small and playful. "What should we make for dinner, Max? Do you think it'll rain today?" But gradually, the words grew heavier. I miss being important. I don't know when I stopped feeling like myself. I feel invisible. He never interrupted, never judged, never looked away. Sometimes he simply rested his head against my leg, and somehow, that was enough. And something inside me shifted. As the weeks passed, Max became part of my rhythm. We walked every morning after David left. Not rushed walks, not fitness walks, just slow movement through quiet streets and shaded paths. I began to notice things again. Sunlight through branches, distant birds, the feeling of breathing without holding it in. With Max beside me, the world felt softer. I started humming while folding laundry, laughing when he chased falling leaves, talking out loud just because I could. At first, my words were small and playful. What should we make for dinner, Max? Do you think it'll rain today? But gradually, the words grew heavier. I miss being important. I don't know when I stopped feeling like myself. I feel invisible. He never interrupted, never judged, never looked away. Sometimes he simply rested his head against my leg, and somehow, that was enough. With comfort came an unexpected feeling, guilt. The more present I felt during my days with Max, the more distant my marriage seemed. It wasn't sudden. There was no single moment where everything changed. Just a quiet awareness growing stronger. David noticed before I said anything. One evening at dinner he looked up and said casually, "You spend a lot of time with the dog." I paused, fork midair. It wasn't an accusation. It wasn't concern. Just an observation. "He keeps me company," I replied softly. "The house gets quiet." David nodded and returned to his phone within seconds. Conversation closed. Moment gone. And right then, something painful became clear to me. It wasn't love that had disappeared between us. It was curiosity. He wasn't interested in my inner world anymore. And somewhere along the way, I had stopped inviting him into it. Months passed, and the distance widened without either of us physically moving. David traveled more. Stayed later at work. When he was home, he felt like a visitor passing through. Polite, tired, distracted. We shared space, not life. Max, however, remained constant. On nights when sadness arrived without warning, he would quietly enter the bedroom and lie beside the bed. Not asking for attention. Not restless. Just present. I would talk into the darkness, thoughts I hadn't spoken out loud in years. "You're the only one who sees me," I whispered once. His ears lifted slightly at the sound of my voice. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the feeling. And in that moment it felt like enough. The argument came on a rainy evening. Not explosive. Not dramatic. Just sharp enough to leave marks. David said I had changed. That I seemed emotionally far away. That I cared more about the dog than about us. I felt the words land heavily in my chest. I wanted to shout, "He notices me because you stopped." But the sentence never left my mouth. I stood there, silent, while frustration filled the room. David stepped away, the conversation unfinished. A door closed down the hall. The house echoed again. My legs gave out, and I sank to the floor. Max came immediately, no hesitation, no confusion, pressing against me as if anchoring me in place. I wrapped my arms around him and cried. Not from heartbreak alone, but from recognition. This wasn't romance. This was connection. And it reminded me of something vital. I deserved to feel alive. David noticed the shift, but this time he didn't comment right away. He watched. One evening, instead of eating separately like we often did, I asked, "Can we sit together tonight? No phones." He looked surprised, then nodded. Dinner was awkward at first. Silence kept trying to return like an old habit. But I didn't let it stay. "I need to tell you something," I said gently. "Not to blame you, just to be honest." He put his phone face down. "I've been lonely for a long time," I said. "Even when we were in the same room." The words didn't explode. They settled between us. Real. Unavoidable. For a moment he said nothing. Then he exhaled slowly, like someone who had been holding tension he didn't know how to name. "I thought you were fine," he said. "You never said anything." "I stopped believing it would matter," I answered. That landed. For the first time in years, he didn't defend himself. He didn't explain it away. He just listened fully, and that alone felt like a door reopening. Across the room, Max lifted his head, watching us quietly, as if he understood that something important was finally being spoken out loud.